What started as a routine patrol in a sleepy town became the most important moment of Officer James Calhoun's career. When a 6-year-old boy made a desperate gesture behind his captor's back, it triggered a chain of events that would expose a predator's twisted game and prove that sometimes salvation comes on 4 legs with an unbreakable bond. James Calhoun thought he'd seen everything in his years on the force. At 33, with sharp instincts and a reputation for noticing the small things others missed, he walked his beat with quiet confidence. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened on that crisp autumn afternoon in Fair Oaks. Beside him trotted Archer, a sleek, muscular German shepherd whose discipline and intuition were legendary. While other dogs barked or strained at their leash, Archer moved like a shadow, calm, observant, and always just a step ahead of danger. As they rounded the corner near Elm and Fifth, James noticed a man and a child walking in the opposite direction. At first glance, they seemed like any father and son, well-dressed, heads down against the breeze. But something felt off. The man's hand clutched the boy's arm a little too tightly. The child didn't skip or chatter like most 6-year-olds. He didn't look around. He was rigid, silent. Then it happened. The boy's eyes locked onto Archer's. There was a flicker, recognition, maybe even hope. And behind the man's back, the boy extended 3 fingers. Quick, deliberate, subtle. James's heart dropped. That was the silent signal, the one taught in schools and whispered in safety videos. 3 fingers, SOS, a plea for help when no words could be spoken. Archer tensed, hackles barely rising. He let out a low, alert rumble. Not a growl of aggression, but one of focus. James had learned to trust that sound. It meant, look closer, something's wrong. James acted like nothing was amiss as the pair walked by, but he subtly turned and followed at a distance, Archer in perfect step beside him. Back at the station, James ran the plates of the black sedan parked near where he'd seen the man. The name on the registration, Roy Calder. A clean record, no flags. But that meant nothing to James now. He went deeper. There were no records of Calder having a child. A child did not existed. No birth certificate. No enrollment in local schools. No medical appointments. No paper trail at all. The child was a ghost. It wasn't until James entered the boy's description into the National Missing Children's database that the truth hit like a freight train. Missing from Boulder, Colorado. Taken from a park just blocks from his home more than 2 years ago. The case had gone cold until now. James called Maxwell's mother, Jenna. Her voice was hollow, distant, like someone who had learned to live with heartbreak. But when James mentioned the boy had silently signaled Archer, she broke down. He loved dogs, she whispered through tears. He had this stuffed animal he called Archer. It was from a storybook about a brave dog who rescued lost kids. He used to sleep with it every night. He believed that dog would come for him. And now, somehow, he had. What James and the team uncovered in the following days was the stuff of nightmares. Roy Calder wasn't just a kidnapper. He was a grieving father whose unresolved trauma had metastasized into something monstrous. 7 years earlier, Calder lost his wife and son in a tragic car accident. But instead of mourning, he decided to replace what he'd lost. Over time, Calder developed a method. He tracked missing children who resembled his dead son, ones whose families had stopped receiving leads. Then, using a combination of manipulation and psychological conditioning, he tried to overwrite their identities, making them believe they'd always been his. Recordings from inside Calder's house revealed bone-chilling conversations. Say it again. Your name is Tyler. There is no Maxwell. That was a dream. No one is looking for you. You're home now. In a hidden compartment of his desk, investigators found a journal. Pages upon pages of detailed notes on how to retrain children. how long it took each one to stop asking questions, which techniques worked best. Maxwell hadn't been the first. He was just the one who found a way out. 3 nights later, a storm rolled in. Early snow fell thick on the ground as James and Archer returned to Calder's home with a warrant. Surveillance had picked up disturbing audio. Maxwell's voice, sobbing. Calder's tone, angry, unstable. James and Archer breached the house just after midnight. The living room was empty, the lights off. But Archer led the way, sniffing low, ears high, muscles taut. He stopped at a bookshelf, sniffed, then pawed at the bottom panel. Behind it, a hidden latch. The door opened into a narrow stairwell. James moved fast. What he found in that basement would haunt him for the rest of his life. Maxwell was tied to a chair, eyes wide with terror. Calder hovered over him, belt in hand, shouting something about obedience. "Step away from him," James barked, weapon raised. Calder turned, eyes wild. "He's mine. You can't prove he isn't." But Calder hadn't counted on Archer. The dog lunged with precision, knocking the weapon away and pinning Calder to the ground before he could even scream. James cuffed the man, shaking with adrenaline, but it was what happened next that broke him. Maxwell, shivering, broken, and pale, crawled toward Archer and collapsed into the dog's fur, clutching him like a life raft. "Archer," the boy whispered. He remembered. The reunion between Maxwell and his mother was simple but unforgettable. It happened in the hospital courtyard as snow drifted gently from the sky. Jenna knelt, afraid to rush him, afraid he wouldn't recognize her. But Maxwell reached out, brushing her hair the way he used to as a toddler. And then, slowly, he leaned into her. No words, just touch, just breathe, just love, rediscovered. Archer stood nearby, eyes watchful but soft. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He just knew his mission was complete. Maxwell's recovery was slow, as expected. At the Will-O-Wisp Treatment Center, therapists helped him rebuild his sense of safety and identity. But the most powerful breakthroughs didn't happen in therapy chairs. They happened during Archer's visits. Maxwell spoke to the dog before he spoke to adults. One day, during a quiet session, he looked at Archer and said aloud, "My name is Maxwell. You remembered when I forgot." Roy Calder's arrest led to the discovery of other families whose children had vanished under similar circumstances. His conviction brought closure to wounds that had festered in silence for years. At a special ceremony at City Hall, Officer James Calhoun received a commendation for bravery, but the loudest applause was for Archer. The crowd erupted as Maxwell, now visibly healthier, stronger, stood beside the decorated K9 and addressed the audience. "He saved me when I couldn't save myself," the boy said, voice clear and proud. The medal Archer received bore a simple inscription, "For seeing what others missed." Today, Maxwell is back home. He still carries scars, but they no longer define him. He's a survivor, a fighter, a storyteller, and he still dreams of being a police officer. Not just because of James, but because of Archer. This story reminds us that heroism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet way someone notices what the world ignores. Sometimes it's in a signal only one person or one dog can recognize. Sometimes it's in the bond between a child and the protector who never gave up on him. Remember, every child deserves to be seen, heard, and protected. And sometimes, the ones who protect them don't wear capes. They wear collars. Thanks for watching till the end. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because this story of courage and connection is about to remind you why we should never underestimate the power of paying attention. And if you loved this story, please like and subscribe. Here's a suggestion for another video to watch. We'll see you in the next story.